It's on, right? Yes.
It's preparing. I'm still loading. Okay, and I'm on the page. I think we're good now.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call it to order. I have a script that I need to read. Hello, I am Mandy Carstetter and Service Chair of the Practice IV Therapy Advisory Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Practice IV Therapy Advisory Committee to respond to a roll call signifying your presence at this open meeting via Zoom and YouTube Live. Juliana Reichik.
Here. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute.
No, that's okay. Tracy Mativi Thomas.
Here.
Christina Blanton.
Here.
Julie Brown. Julie. Denise Rebel.
Here.
Jean Gerstenkorn. I hope I
Here.
did not. Okay. Sharon Morris.
Here.
Okay. So Julie Brown's the only one I didn't hear. I also asked the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland.
Oh, here. I was muted.
Linda Davis.
Here.
Chelsea Stevenson. Victoria Bond.
Here.
Public comment allows individuals to address the Practice IV Therapy Advisory Committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require the committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals, as we will not know what comments an individual may make. We would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Public comment will not be taken today due to that concern, and because this is a meeting conducted by Zoom, virtual meetings, and YouTube Live, where the connection may be lost over time and the period for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Because we are conducting the public meeting by Zoom, virtual meetings, and YouTube Live, I state for the record the following information. 1, on June 2nd and 11th, 2020, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Practice IV Therapy Advisory Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. The notice contains the Zoom meeting identification number and password and the YouTube Live link to allow the public to attend this meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-5752 if the individual does not have access to a computer. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at that website or by sending an email to carolmoreland@ks.gov with the subject line request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. Effective June 9th, 2020, House Bill 2016 ratified Governor Kelly's emergency declaration due to the COVID-19 pandemic and extended it through September 15th, 2020. But the requirements of COMA were not suspended. We will be conducting this meeting pursuant to COMA and KAR 16-20-1 concerning compliance with the COMA during an emergency declaration. The Zoom virtual meeting and YouTube Live are the only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting. Each meeting of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state each member, person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the result of the final vote. And a statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the board. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on its agenda: review of the on-site packet, additions or revisions to agenda if needed, approval of minutes for the meeting held on December 10th, 2019, unfinished business, new business, agenda for the committee meeting in September 2020, and adjournment. The committee will now consider the first item on its agenda. It says review of on-site packet, but I didn't see an on-site packet. Did I miss it?
I didn't see one.
Okay. Okay, I didn't think so, but then I looked at this and I thought maybe I missed something. Do we have any additions or revisions to the agenda? Yes, no?
Not that I saw, Mandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next we need to review the December 10th, 2019 minutes. I'm assuming everybody went through those and we need to approve them or amend them, whichever the case may be.
Mandy, this is Juliana. I would move to approve the minutes from December 19th, 2019 as written.
Okay. Do I have a second?
This is Tracy. I'll second.
Okay. Do we do, and this tells you how often I get to do this. Do I ask first if we need to, for everybody to say agree, or do we discuss first? Linda,
You
Carol, say that again.
First. You do the discussion first?
Okay, I thought we did. I'm so sorry. It's been a long day.
No, it's okay.
For you too. Okay, any discussion?
Other than in the recording, I think you stated December 19th and it's the December 10th
It was
minute.
10th. Yeah, December 10th, 2019. You are correct.
If you weren't recording that, I wouldn't have parsed that.
No, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. It is December 10th, 2019 minutes. There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This is Tracy. Aye.
This is Juliana. Aye.
This is Denise. I.
This is Jeannie. Aye.
Any opposed, say your name and same sign. Okay, it is approved. Let's see, next on our agenda is complaints or concerns.
We have none to present today.
And- Okay. Okay, moving on, practice unfinished business. I believe the first one is delegation of specific nursing task in the school setting for Kansas.
And I have those, and you should have those in the packet.
Yes.
And so I sent a highlighted copy that just highlighted what we chose to change, and that's open to discussion. The first, do you want me just to go through that and the rest
Yes.
remains the same?
Yes.
So the first item was that in the current version, in that first paragraph where we're listing out the basic caregiving tasks, for some reason it ends with may be performed by a UAP with supervision of an RN or LPN. And we want to strike that and say by a UAP without delegation. Further in our own delegation regulations, it states that caregiving tasks of brushing hair, grooming, and dressing do not need to be delegated. So why we have it that we supervise it, I'm not sure, because it's outside of our nursing delegation. So we are recommending that we add that without delegation there to really clearly highlight that these combing hair is not something that a nurse needs to train, supervise, and delegate. That type of thing. The next change, in the old version, we had down in the grid some items, for instance, care of skin with damaged integrity, and under LPN, we had A/S, which is allowed within scope of practice /S within scope of practice with supervision. And we have to be honest that we weren't real sure what that distinction was. And all we could think of is that perhaps there is a certification or something that is associated, like with tracheostomy care is another one that has that. And if so, maybe it was a distinction between if the LPN is trained in that, then it is a part of their role, but if not, then it's delegated and supervised by the RN. Is that your understanding as a board or a committee?
That's how I took it, but the rest of you?
That makes sense to me. I agree with what you're saying.
I wasn't there when it was decided, so I'm hypothesizing, and none of the nurses that I've spoken to were sure of why that was. So we propose that if that is in fact the case, that we change that to a C/S and actually spell it out, that it's allowed within the scope of practice if certified. Otherwise, RN supervision is required. And so we more clarified that so people wouldn't be wondering, well, is it or isn't it?
Right, right.
So further down, you'll see prescribed medications, intramuscular. And then we put under the LPN that there is an S, that it is within the scope of practice with supervision with the pound sign. And for a UAP, it's cannot perform with a pound sign. And then it said, no, this is for IMs, no, unless an emergency medication as specified per an emergency action plan. So it is supervisable with an LPN. They are qualified to give an IM injection. We wanted to highlight that it could be an RN or an LPN that was supervising that, since it is something that an LPN can do. And there might be times where an LPN is, if we have an RN has more than one school that they're going to, and this encompasses, say, for the IM, this is under an emergency action plan. So there's catches your EpiPens, and so we're saying that a UAP that is trained can give that, even if it's an LPN in the school, that's the school nurse.
When you say UPA, are you referring to, because being a school nurse, so
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially field trips, we are delegating that to a teacher. There's no health person from the office that goes on the field trip. So that does cover that person.
That's a UAP, that's unlicensed assistive personnel, and that's defined up in the top paragraph,
Okay.
Unlicensed assistive person.
Okay.
And so that would be that teacher. And we've trained them, we've delegated, they have that emergency plan, they have been trained in that. We have all the delegation paperwork, they sign it all off so that all of that is covered. And then they are allowed to do that with our supervision or the supervision of an LPN.
And does it say anywhere in there that delegation is done yearly? Or
That is
academic
later.
school year?
That's later in the delegation regulations.
Okay.
So this is just a document that tells us what we can and can't do and who can we delegate to. Doesn't say, go into all the details of
Specific.
how. Yeah, that's further on. So then we have down here, we have had tracheostomy care, the care of the ostomy and trach and or suctioning. And again, we change that to the C/S. If they are certified, they can do that. It's in their scope or it's under supervision. We have added two additional items that are becoming increasingly common in the school setting. One of those is tracheostomy, the reinsertion of an established. We're not talking about a new trach, a fresh trach. We're talking kids that some of them have had trachs since birth. They're now in middle school or high school. And so they're established trachs. And we want to be able to, the RN can do it, the LPN can do it with supervision. And we want to be able to, it is, let's see, not delegated unless, not delegable, unless to a UAP, unless an emergency procedure as specified per an emergency action plan is in place. And there is an RN or a certified LPN supervising it. And so these are not the fresh, these are the established, and there must be an emergency action plan with all the delegation, all the training in place. We have students that the only reason they have an RN or an LPN assigned to them is because their para that could be trained to do that quick emergency reinsertion is not allowed to be delegated that task. So they have an extra person following them through their day for that specific task, which really is, it could be a procedure that could be trained, falls within those delegation regs, does not require nurse judgment, is a procedure that could be trained and dealt with just as EpiPens and other procedures in an emergency action plan. So that's why we included that. Then mechanical ventilation, the management of that, we added that because we are getting we are getting those students in our schools, and so we wanted to actually put that on our grid here so that we could designate just who can do what. So yes, we need an order. It is within the scope of practice for an RN, a certified LPN or supervised by the RN. That cannot be delegated to the management of the ventilator cannot be delegated to a UAP. And then let's see, it is allowed to be self-administration. I think that we may have, if the person is capable of managing their ventilation, that most of the things I've noticed in Kansas, we allow them, other than their care planning, we allow them to do themselves if they are signed off and capable of. Do you have any questions, discussions, disagreements, or is this acceptable?
Sharon, it sounds acceptable to me. I suppose I'd like to hear from those of you that are school nurses that live and breathe this.
It sounds acceptable to me. I mean, currently in my two elementary schools, I'm not seeing, ventilators and stuff like that. I did do pediatric home health nursing prior to school nursing, and I was one of those nurses that was assigned to go with a student that had a ventilator, and I followed that kid around in the building and whatnot. So I understand that. So from what everything is written right now, it does sound acceptable to me that we would have that in our scope.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other discussion? Okay. The next thing is the school nurse and epi kits and albuterol, possible legislation in 2020. Sharon, do you have that as well?
Yes, I do.
I thought you did.
So this is, and I sent you that in the packet as well, the background information. And I just wanted you to see this, and those of you that are school nurses will really understand this, the confusion that exists out there, or the complications and the unintended consequences from the previous legislation that is spread out over the three sections of state regulation, and particularly what has been a barrier to school districts, both large and small, has been the need for a consulting pharmacist. And so typically we can get a doctor that will partner with us and will write the orders for the district to be able to stock and administer EpiPens for those for unknown or anaphylactic reactions, or for those diagnosed that they don't have their pen with them. And so we can usually get a physician okay, but finding a consulting pharmacist, and the way the current legislation is written, it really puts the pharmacist almost in an interesting administrative role, in that they're almost a supervisor to the program, and they are responsible for knowing where the EpiPens are, for managing the expiration dates and all of that we as nurses do in our buildings if we have EpiPens and stock EpiPens. And so it was written that way. From my history, my knowledge of the history, it was put together fairly quickly. And I think some of this was unintended at the time. And in coming back in and reviewing it and seeing the barrier that is to so many districts, Wichita, who has 100 schools, there is no pharmacist that wants to write a prescription and take that responsibility for a district that has 100 schools. At the same time, there are rural districts that they can't find a pharmacist who is willing to take this on, and they can find a physician that would help them, and they can administrate it. So with that in mind, we approached Fred Patton, who is a legislator, and he sponsored this bill. We redesigned the bill, and the background information, you have like a 4-page document that explains the whys and wherefores. We reviewed the 50 states, the stock emergency medication legislation from all 50 states. We pulled from those that were our favorites, put together this legislation. We figured as long as we were addressing this, more and more states are going to stock albuterol as well. And so rather than having to readdress this in another year or two and go through this entire process, we would just go ahead and include stock albuterol as well. So it became the EpiPen and stock albuterol legislation. And that was House Bill 2488, and you see it there, and with all the revisions that we made. And so I wanted to let you know that, because it would certainly be good for the Board of Nursing to be supportive of this. It is needed for schools and for access to emergency life-saving medication to students that are in schools. And another thing that was changed in this new legislation is the old legislation really specified that the EpiPens could be given to students and staff. And that left out visitors, parents, grandparents. So technically, if a parent had an anaphylactic reaction and did not have an EpiPen, I would not be under the current law covered to utilize the stock EpiPen from the school to save the parent's life, even though if it was an adult teacher or a student, I could. So we tailored this somewhat after the Narcan legislation, which just says an individual. So that if they're on school premises or at a school-sponsored event, you know, I'm not going to run down to the 7-Eleven and do this, but if it's a school property or a school-sponsored event, then a person that is trained, and it goes into all of that, can administer a stock epinephrine, and schools can, with physician guidance and physician review of the emergency of the school's plan for this, they can write an order and we can get it just like we would any other prescription, take it to a pharmacist, and they aren't having to administrate it. They're just filling the prescription and giving us the medication. And many times we're getting that through Mylan. And so we specify in there that we can have that given as utilizing programs or grant money or, things like that. So that is what this legislation is about. Do you have, if you've had a chance to read over it and review it, do you have any questions or concerns about it?
I have a couple of questions if it came up in discussion. So with this legislation, which I think is everything that you talked about is great, to have the stock EpiPen, stock albuterol. So if you have a student that suddenly has an anaphylactic reaction, not a known allergen, but it's there and you use it. So in case parents were to ask if we have this, or is this a district decision? So is the parent going to be charged for the cost of that EpiPen, or is the district just absorbing the cost? Because my only concern, because in the past I have had parents that don't want, that their child has a known anaphylactic reaction to peanuts, but they don't want to provide an EpiPen because of the cost, and they want to have the school provide it in the event. And so I'm just kind of curious if that came up in discussion. How would that just be an individual district decision?
Well, yes and no. We do not charge them for this. So this is, but as far as the expense, at this point, Mylan is a free, it's Epi for schools.
Okay.
And you get two packs per school free of charge.
Okay.
With the physician. So I every year I submit my physician orders and I tell them what schools are getting which EpiPens. And like elementary, I'll get 1 2-pack of juniors and 1 2-pack of adults. My secondary schools, I'll get 2 2-packs of adults because they typically don't have the little ones in there. And then in addition to that, if those, and we had for some reason, our high school students felt invincible this year before COVID hit. And we went through EpiPens like crazy. And you can apply to Mylan for replacements. So if you fill out their forms, you document what the circumstances were and you submit that, and they do replacement pens free of charge. So essentially there is no charge. We just need to get past the barrier of having to have the pharmacist administrate the program.
Right. But I'm assuming that we're still expecting parents to send. This is just the event. Okay.
In the event, in the emergency. Now, do we ever have parents that don't do that? Absolutely. But we do not endorse it.
Right.
We encourage them, and I let them know that the stock EpiPen has to stay in the school. So if your child is going for a field trip, that stock EpiPen is covering the other 750 kids in those schools. Right. It's not going with your child on the field trip. So your child, if they cannot go without an EpiPen, you either need to provide it, or you're going to have to work with me on a plan for how do we keep them safe, because we're not sending the stock EpiPen on the field trip. So, there's things like that. And that's kind of part of the, of what you work through as a district with your parents.
Right. The other thing that I'm assuming, and I could be wrong. So a lot of times, like in my school district, there, I have 2 buildings that I cover. So I might be in one elementary school 2 days, and the days I'm not there, it's a health clerk who is not an LPN or anything like that. And are we allowed to, because to me, if this is for emergency of you're suspecting someone's having an anaphylactic, is it something I can delegate? Or did the health clerk have to call an RN and describe what's going on and have the RN be the responsible person to say, yes, give it? And obviously we would be calling 911 as well.
And that is addressed in here. As long as you have trained them in the EpiPen, anaphylaxis,
and
the signs and symptoms, it actually states that the person administering the epinephrine reasonably believes the individual is exhibiting the signs and symptoms of an anaphylactic reaction, or the person administering the albuterol reasonably believes that there's the respiratory distress, because it's addressing both that
So
and
obviously, if they're CPR first aid trained,
right.
that's something that they would know. Okay, I just didn't know if it was
Yes.
something that would, it's our license on the line, if they use their judgment
Yeah.
without.
That is, as long as we have trained them,
Okay.
and they are supposed to be, this is supposed to be administered by a trained individual.
Okay.
And so they should know that. And I annually would do my EpiPen training. You know, at the beginning of the year, I would get up and I'd have my trainers all out on the tables, and I would have them, and we would go through it. We'd cover the signs and symptoms, and then we would do that. Just because even without the stock, we have students that have it prescribed, and so I do that with them so that they're all trained with that. That also enables them then to also be able to access that stock, and coaches that are there after school hours when I'm maybe gone, if they have a reaction, that, you know, they can access that and utilize it.
How would you handle that if you're talking about, again, this is something that would be locked up in the nurse's office. If it's after school hours, but it's a coach, it's on campus.
I think it actually states that it should be in a secure but unlocked location.
Okay,
So we lock it in our office,
correct.
but the custodian is always there, and there is an administrative presence anytime that the building is used, and they have a key to the nurse office. And so they can, and then within the nurse office, so it's secure, it's not just laying out. We debated putting it in the AED cabinets, and then decided that really that probably, because unlike the AED that you cannot do, it will not respond if it's not appropriate. You could get kids horsing around and actually injure someone with an EpiPen. So we decided, no, we can't have it that accessible. So we keep it locked in our offices or in a secure place that's designated by the nurse and, you know, the administrator and that, but it's in a unlocked cabinet. So once they get into my office, and we have signs on the doors, and they can just pull it open, get it out, and it's immediately accessible. They don't have multiple locks to get through.
Okay, yeah, that would be my concern for those type of things. And then it would still then cover, like a lot of times we'll have the YMCA, they're using our gymnasium in the evening for practices or whatever, so it covers. Because
it would not cover their staff accessing. I don't think it would cover our staff accessing, because this is written kind of along the lines of the school district. The school means the school district, and this is the school nurse. And I'm typically not training Y care
Right,
staff, and
I
after
don't
school,
either.
they need to get their own, and the parents need to provide that.
Okay, so because
if
we'll
I
have
were-
a lot of times the staff coming over and they're wanting something, and we're like, no, which
No.
I think makes parents mad, because they're like, but it's in the building, it's there, why do I have to get another one? But
Right.
okay, that helps. But is that clearly stated in there in any way, or is that just something interpretive?
I would have to look at it to see whether it actually excludes use by, but I do know that it is explicitly written for being school stock for use in school-sponsored events. And
Okay.
I don't think Y care
Not
would be a
YMCA, okay.
school-sponsored
No,
event.
you're not. Okay.
Although it can be used on school property or at a school-sponsored event, if such school nurse or designated school personnel reasonably. So it does specify that who is administering it is designated school personnel, which would not include your Y care personnel, correct?
Correct. And I don't think I would feel 100% comfortable
No.
training my custodian to do
Well,
it either. So.
And that's why we said designated.
Okay.
You know, so you can choose, if you don't feel that they're capable, you don't train them.
Okay.
although, Good Samaritan Act, pretty much, anybody can give an EpiPen with Good Samaritan, but yeah. There are some people that you might not choose to train.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? And do you feel like this is something that you can support if you see this come across, that you would not, as the practice committee of Kansas Board of Nursing, you would not object to?
Hey, Sharon,
Yes.
this is Carol Moreland from agency staff. So this bill was introduced in the Committee on Education. Did
Yes.
it go anywhere? Do anything?
And I presented it, and Kimber Kasich from Wichita, who is the president of KSNO, and I'm the board of directors for NASN, the Kansas rep, and that we went and we jointly presented lots of questions and they were very pleased with this. Many of them have either have anaphylaxis or their kids do. One of them wanted to extend it. Well, what if it's across the street and down the, and we were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. There is a limit to how far we want this to go. And the Board of Pharmacy, the lawyer from the Board of Pharmacy was sitting there going, we're not signing on if you do that. And we were like, yeah, we're not just giving carte blanche here. This is school property, school sponsored event. Sorry if it's at the 7-Eleven, call 911,
Right.
They very supportive. It was passed out of committee with a positive recommendation for passage, and then did not make it onto the docket in time to make the calendar. So we're going to have to try to reintroduce it next year and get it through, and this time try to expedite it and get people to get it. I don't know, I get somehow to that Speaker of the House's ear and say, we need this on here. And, and that may be a place where, KSBN and that we had a number of organizations, the Board of Pharmacy, and the Kansas School Board Association, all with letters of support, and they were all, and that helped, but it died it did a calendar death.
It was not a good year over there.
And then between that and then I was also doing vision guidelines, the new vision guidelines, and COVID hit and it died.
So was the
It's
board
not a good year.
Yeah, it wasn't. Did the Board of Pharmacy support this then?
Yes, they collaborated we beforehand. We had met and been through this with the Board of Pharmacy, with the lawyers from the Kansas Medical Association, and they gave a letter of support with the Kansas School Board Association, or Association of School Boards, sorry. Everybody was signed on, and we had already gotten and worked everybody's concerns through and out and reworded, and that's the finished document that you see.
Great, you did a good job.
Yeah. Tried to do all that work ahead of time so we didn't have to go back in and
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Okay.
Does any committee members, do you have any comments? Any questions for Sharon on the House Bill 2488?
Not from me, ma'am. I appreciate the conversation. It's very educational, so thank you.
Very much.
Very
well, if you see
thorough.
it come up again, say a prayer and
Do we, the committee, do you think that Carol, and you can probably help us out with a little bit, do you think it's something we should bring up to the board and see how the board as a whole feels about it and supporting it and go from there? I mean, because
so that if it does come up over across the street and you give me direction to support it, we can certainly do that.
it'd be
Okay.
great if we had a letter of support. I think that would put a bow on it, that the Board of Nursing supports it, if you're comfortable with, if the board is comfortable with that, that would be great.
I can definitely bring it up tomorrow, Carol, and see what they think
Mhm.
during my report, and
Yeah.
we can go from there. It's a lot of work. You did a good job.
Well, thank
Do
you.
we
It's-
need
I
a-
know it's been a lot of work. I can, yeah.
Cindy
you can do it.
Gilmore, Chris Tuck, some of the old, line that they've since retired, they really did a lot of groundwork on this, and then we've just kind of taken it and carried it on.
Carol,
Thank
would
you.
we need a motion from this committee or a recommendation from this committee to go to the board? Would that help?
Yeah, it probably would, to take that to the board tomorrow, and so that they know that it came out of this committee to support it.
So Mandy, I'd make a motion that the practice committee suggest to the full board that we support House Bill, I forgot the number,
2488.
2488.
Do I have a
This is Jeannie
second?
Gerstenkorn, I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all that approve, I need you to say your name and I to signify your approval.
Denise, I.
Jeannie, I.
Juliana, aye.
Tracy, I.
Am I allowed to vote? Aye, if I am.
Absolutely.
Any who oppose, I need the same sign with your name. And any that abstain, the same sign and name. Okay, it is moved. We will bring it up tomorrow in board meeting.
Mandy, this is Chelsea. Who was it that second?
You know what? I didn't write down. Who did second? Juliana made the motion. Who seconded that motion?
It's Jeannie Gerstenkorn, I did.
Thank you.
I do have a question, if I might. On the delegation of special nursing tasks, did we pass that? Did we do a vote? Do we need to do a motion to accept that? And did
I
we do so?
didn't have a motion for that, Carol or Chelsea.
Yeah, you probably need to approve it if that's what you want to do. Yeah,
Okay,
show that it was reviewed and approved out of committee.
can I get a committee member to do the motion for that? For the delegation of the specific nursing task in the school setting is what we're talking about.
Denise, I will motion.
Can I get a second from committee member, please?
This is Tracy, I'll second.
Mandy, this is Chelsea. Can we clarify what the wording for the motion needs to be?
Okay, Denise, do you want to do that? It's to approve. Okay, so we'd be
I'm
wanting
not sure if I
to,
could say it.
is it to approve the delegation of specific nursing tasks in the school setting for Kansas?
As presented?
As presented, yeah. Will that work, Chelsea?
Yes, we got that. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I should have been a little more clear on that, sorry. Okay,
This is Sharon, and
go ahead. I was gonna say, any discussion on the delegation? Okay, so to approve, I need you to say your name and I signify aye if you approve.
Jeannie, I.
Denise, I.
Juliana, aye.
Tracy, I.
Sharon, I.
Okay, anybody oppose? Your name and same sign? Any abstains? Okay,
Will those be
Moving-
will those be posted on the website? Because I can't find the current, they seem to have disappeared. I can't find the current one. Will it be, will it replace the old one then?
Did you hear that, Chelsea or Carol?
Yeah, it should replace the old one. I'm not sure where the old one's at, but we will, once this gets approved by the board tomorrow, we can certainly get it posted and find out maybe what happened to, sometimes when we redid our website, I don't know, a few things I think maybe never got carried over or something.
I think that's what happened because I used to refer to it all the time and then all of a sudden I couldn't find it.
Well, we'll make sure it gets on there someplace, okay?
Okay, moving on to new business. We have the 5-year legislative review schedule. Professional and practical nurses, the 65-1165 delegation provisions due in 2020. And that is. Did everybody have time to review that? And do you have any comments? Off the top of my head.
Mandy, this is Juliana. I don't
Yes.
have any suggested revisions. I am okay with it. I don't know if anyone else has feelings.
I had no suggestions for revisions.
This is Jeannie. I agree.
Okay, if we are all in agreement, is there anything from you, Carol or Linda? Is there anything? Okay.
No.
Somebody to entertain a motion to approve this?
So this is Juliana. I would move to approve 65-1165 as written for the
Do I have a-
annual review.
Do I have a second?
This is Sharon Morris and I second.
Any discussion? All that approve, just signify with your name and I, please.
Jeannie, I.
Denise?
Juliana, aye.
Tracy, I.
Sharon, I.
All opposed, same sign. And any that abstain, same sign. Okay, it is approved. Next on there is requirements for licensure and standards of practice. And that is, first one is 60-3-101 licensure due 2020.
Again, it looked good to me, Mandy. This is Juliana.
Okay. I didn't see anything. Did anybody else see anything that they wanted to discuss?
This is Jeannie. I thought it looked good.
And board staff doesn't have any issues with the current functionality of it,
Well, this is
Linda?
And again, this just came from joining the compact, but if you go to B, number 2, it says verification of a current Kansas license shall be provided to other state boards upon request and upon payment in the prescribed fee. We don't actually do it that way anymore. When we joined the compact, they have to do verification through nurses. So they don't pay us. They actually go to nurses. So the board I mean, we as a board do not provide that verification anymore. The nurse goes to nurses and pays nurses. So I mean,
So should that be stricken from that? The
well,
number,
or maybe change to, maybe I can work on it and bring it back in September. Would that be
Okay.
okay?
that would be fine. Does anybody else have any? I didn't even notice that. I'm so used to seeing Kansas. It's hard for us to get used to.
You probably wouldn't know unless you're kind of part of the process, but that's kind of not true the way it's stated. So I think maybe we just need to kind of reword it a little bit. We still, I mean, verification has to be done, but it's not done through us. per
Okay.
se.
I think that sounds like a good plan, Carol, so.
Okay,
So we'll just leave that one for, we'll just table that. That'll go back, come back in September after rewording.
yeah.
Okay. Do I need to make a motion for that or no? I don't think I need to, do I?
I think you can just direct me to work on it and bring it back.
Okay, Miss Carol, can you please work on that and bring it back in
I
September?
will do that, Mandy. Yes.
I really will get this one of these days. Okay, next up is, under the requirements for licensure and standards of practice, is 60-3-108, expiration date initial due on 2020.
Carol, any feedback on this one with related to the compact? I mean, it looks good to me, but
Yeah, no, the fact that they have a multi-state doesn't change this at all. And everybody knows this really well, so I would not suggest that we change this.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Any other
I'd make-
comments? Go ahead. Anybody want to entertain a motion?
I move that we accept 60-3-108 as presented.
Do I have a second?
This is Tracy. I'll second.
Thank you. Do we have any more discussion? Okay. All that approve, I just need your, say aye, of course, say your name and say aye to signify approval.
Jeannie, I.
Juliana, I.
Tracy.
Sharon, go ahead.
Tracy, I.
Sharon, I.
All that oppose signify the same. Any that abstain? Okay, motion is approved. Okay, next is performance of selected nursing procedures in school settings. First one is 60-15-102. It's delegation procedures. It was due in 2019.
I didn't have anything that I needed revised in it.
Looks good to me.
Carol, is there anything on here that we should be looking for or anything that we should maybe think about changing? I mean, to me, it looks good.
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
Can we someone want to entertain a motion to approve?
This is Tracy. I move that we accept 60-15-102
As written, right?
as written. As
Can
written.
I have a second, please?
I'll second. This is Sharon. Any
discussion? Okay, all that approve, you just say your name and I signify approval.
This is Juliana. I.
Jeannie, I.
Tracy, I.
Sharon, I.
Any opposed, same sign. Any abstain? Motion approved. Next one is 60-15-103. It is supervision of delegated tasks or procedures. And it was due 2019.
I didn't have anything that I felt needed to be revised in it. It looked good to me.
This is Juliana. I'll make a motion to approve 60-15-103 as written.
Okay, do I have a second, please?
This is Tracy, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if not, I need all that approve. I need a name and signify with I, please.
Sharon,
Jeannie,
I.
Tracy, I.
Juliana, I.
Denise, I.
Okay, any opposed, same sign. Any abstain? Motion is approved. Next one, 60-15-104, medication administration in a school. Due 2019. Sharon, did you see anything in here? Or Denise, anything that?
No, it looked fine to me. It's what we've been practicing under, and we have an entire medication administration in Kansas schools guidelines document that kind of fleshes this out in detail.
Okay. Anybody willing to make a motion?
This is Sharon. I move that we accept 60-15-104 as written.
Second, please.
This is Jeannie, I second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in approval, name and signify with I, please.
This is Juliana, I.
Denise, I.
Jeannie, I.
Sharon, I.
Those that oppose, same sign. Any that abstain? Motion approved. Okay, next is Licensed Mental Health Technician Act Statutes 65-4204, title and abbreviations is due the 2020.
Mandy, this is Juliana.
Yes.
I would approve, I'd move to approve 65-4204 as written.
Second, please.
This is Tracy, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those approve, say aye.
Jeannie, I.
Sharon, I.
Tracy, I.
All those that oppose, same sign. Any abstain? Motion's approved. Next one is 65-4205, renewal of license. And that was due 2016. Is there anything on this that anybody sees that that needs to be discussed?
Carol, nothing in this is changed with the compact or any of the conversations at investigative committee. Is that accurate?
Well, the compact doesn't have to do with LMHTs. It's only
Oh, sure. This
RNs
is
and LPNs,
specific.
so that doesn't impact them at all. And
This is specific to LMHTs then. Okay.
right, this is specific for LMHTs. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Someone
This is Julie.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if somebody was willing to do a motion.
This is Juliana. I'll move that we approve 65-4205 as written.
Second,
This is
This is
Tracy.
Jeannie, I second.
any discussion? All that approve, say aye.
Jeannie,
This-
I.
This is Sharon. Aye.
Tracy, I.
Juliana, I.
Denise, I.
All opposed? Same sign? Any abstain? Motion approved. Then we have requirements for licensure and standards of practice 60-17-101 licensure. Let's do this 2016.
This is Jeannie. Doesn't this one have the same issue on B where it needs to be updated? The
Yes, it
verification of
does.
current Kansas
Yeah.
license.
Yeah, so I'll work on that one and bring it back.
Okay, so Ms. Carroll's going to work on that one and bring it back in September. Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have IV therapy. We have unfinished business. Update on updated IV regulations.
And I can talk on that if you want me to, Mandy.
Yes, yes, please.
The IV regulations were updated. They were adopted by the board in December. They were implemented January 17th, 2020. One thing that has come up because of this, if you remember, instead of just having an IV therapy course, now it's kind of been split. There can be a standalone course, or they can take the curriculum and put it in a practical nursing program. And this came up in the education. There was quite a bit of discussion about this in the education committee this morning, because I think there's still a few things that have to be flushed out when it's taken into the PN curriculum. There were some questions that were brought up and there was a lot of discussion. It was felt like there probably needed to be a task force to work on this. So we do have 4 people, well, 3 people and myself from the education committee that are going to kind of meet, work on this and try to bring some stuff back in September. I didn't know if you wanted someone from this practice IV therapy advisory committee who maybe wants to be on that task force or something. And then I was also wondering if Linda could, our practice specialist, could also be on there because number one, she used to cover IV therapy before she moved into practice specialist. So she has a lot of knowledge of it. She would be able to back up if I don't happen to be able to be there for some reason or the other when they're meeting. And then of course she covers practice. So that would be very helpful. But I didn't know if you wanted another representative from this committee to serve on that task force. I don't know.
Would any of the committee members like to be part of that task force? I am in education committee and there was an extensive, Carol's right, is extensive discussion on this. There are some gray lines and schools would like some clarification and they just kind of want to know where they stand, I think, and exactly where they need to go with it, especially with the core curriculum. Is there any committee member that would like to be on that task force to help them?
This is Juliana. I would support Linda being on there. I'm not opposed to helping. I don't know that I'm the best person to do it. Mandy, would you be interested?
I don't know that I would be the best to be on there. I mean, if the committee feels that I should be, I certainly can, and I will certainly do it. I'm just, you know, it's not my forte really, IVs, and I'm not an educator either. So sometimes I feel like I'm a little out of my element, but I do take what we do seriously, and I do want to do the very best that we can for our citizens. And we definitely want that. We want the education committee to know where they need to go with this as well, because they have had a lot of questions, So I don't know, I can, Linda, I guess, and Carol, if you want to talk about it later, I definitely can if you want me to.
Okay.
I will make
Okay.
time for it.
All right, thank you. Okay. So I don't think there's anything else on those IV regs at this point.
At this point, it has in here that they want us to approve, though. It says in here, I have motions in here for approving those. Do you want me to go ahead and do that, or you want to wait?
Well, those have already been approved and
That's what
adopted
I
and
thought
everything.
too, but I don't know why they.
Yeah, so no, they don't need adopted again.
Okay, thank you. Well, I thought so, but I was getting really confused looking at this.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so that is the unfinished business. The new business is the updated IV therapy test questions.
Yeah, and I can talk on this.
Okay, thank you.
Put that on there because the test questions that we're using presently haven't been revised for a while. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention. Didn't know if you wanted me to maybe start working on maybe a process that they could get updated and bring that back in September. I just think they probably need to be at least looked at. I don't know that they've even been reviewed for a while. You know, and we did change the curriculum some in those updated IV regs. So I think it probably would be a good idea to look at the IV therapy test questions, because we have two versions of the test that we send out to the IV providers. These would be the ones with the standalone, and they need to use our questions for the most part. So I think it's probably a good idea if we kind of review those on every so often anyway, to make sure that they stay current and everything.
Committee, do you want her to start working on that and bring that back in September?
I think that sounds great. This is Juliana.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Carol, do you mind doing that for September then? And we will, okay,
I'll work on that.
thank you. Next is the 5-year legislative review schedule. Carol, can you talk on that, or is that Linda?
No, I can. And actually, it's on page 32 in your handout. It's a statute that we just need to look at. I don't know that I I don't know, this is, this is the statute, so if you want any changes, it's gonna have to go across the street, and I don't know that there has to be changes in here that talks about, that they can get it in their curriculum and stuff like that. This is more like the qualifications and, that there's an advisory committee and stuff like that. So it looks probably pretty okay to me.
I'm sorry, I'm not finding it. Page 32 is the,
2019 Kansas Statutes 65-1136. Or it's in mine, is it not in yours?
Yeah, it was in our pack. I have
Oh,
it. It was in our packet. Yeah.
It talks about how we can adopt rules and regs that talk about IV fluid therapy course and stuff like that. So it does give us statutory authority to do the rules and regs and stuff like that.
I don't see anything that needs to be changed. Anybody else? I don't need to make a motion for this, do I? Since we're not doing anything to it?
Yeah, it's 5 years, so you do need to,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
so this is Juliana. I would move to approve 65-1136 as written.
Can someone second, please?
This is Sharon. I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those that approve, say aye.
Janie, I.
This is Juliana, I.
Tracy, I.
Sharon, I.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstain? Motion approved. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? I'm looking for my other page. I'm so sorry. I've lost it. On our thing.
The only thing on page 3 was that professional and practical nurses 65-1136 LPN IV therapy, and then adjournment.
Mhm.
I have no idea what happened to my page 3. I'm sorry. Okay, what was that? 65 what? Say that again, Sharon.
The only thing on page 3 was 65-1136
Just that thing.
LPN IV therapy, yeah, and then adjournment.
Okay, can I get a motion then to adjourn?
This is Juliana. I'll move to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
I'll second Tracy.
Okay, all those that approve, say aye.
Sharon, I.
Janie, I.
Juliana, I.
Tracy, I.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. That is it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we went over. Everybody have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Mandy, you too. Great job.
Oh, thanks.